Poverty differs all throughout the world, and it can affect every individual in a different way. Even though people are aware of what problems poverty causes, most choose to not address the issue. There are many issues that poverty creates, especially within the education system. Students who are living in poverty do not have as many opportunities as students who are not living in poverty. That does not mean that impoverished students cannot succeed. It simply means that those students tend to have more of a struggle. These students struggle because most do not have access to technology, which is a rapidly growing process of learning. In current days, it is common to see online classes being taught, papers being written online, and homework being turned in online. Without this technology, students tend to fall behind in the classes. Not only can a lack of technology lead to a student struggle, but if a student has a job, then their job can also create the same struggle. If an impoverished student has a part-time job in order to provide for their family, then this can get in the way of schoolwork. A student may see the job as a priority because the job brings in money, while schoolwork does not. Over time, if a student begins regularly prioritizing their job, then they will tremendously fall behind in school, which could even lead to the student dropping out of school. Furthermore, if one job is not enough money for the family, then the teen may get a second or third job. Eventually, the need of money could start to affect the student to the point of them getting desperate. Once a student is desperate for money, they could resort to prostitution, robbery, or selling drugs. Correspondingly, a student selling drugs shortly would find themselves using drugs as well. If a teenager gets involved with drugs and alcohol, it is more likely for them to get addicted for the rest of their lives. Not only can they become addicted, but the teens could end up in jail as well. Once an individual goes to jail, they have a record that follows with them for the rest of their life, making it very difficult to find a job. If it is difficult for them to find a job, then they begin on this circle of poverty all over again. They dig themselves deeper below the poverty line. Because many impoverished families can barely afford to live on the bare necessities, many of their children cannot afford to go to college. In fact, many families do not even see college as an option due to their lack of money. Many of them end their education once they receive their high school diploma. The problems in poverty all link to each other, and it begins with education. A child's brain is still developing until around the age of 24, and students need to stay in school in order to support and maintain their brain development. When a student is not attending school, they often forget what it is like to socialize, and this can also drastically affect their brain development. Students in poverty sometimes have to sacrifice friends, sports, and clubs because they lack the money to participate in these extracurriculars. Not only are they sacrificing small things, but families in poverty also have to make big sacrifices. Sometimes these families will have to sacrifice something one week in order to have something else, such as food, electricity, and water. Without food, families starve. Without electricity, families cannot continue their daily activities, and without water, families are incapable of taking care of their personal hygiene. Because of the lack of necessities that many impoverished families have to go through, this causes stress amongst the students. Stress is a major factor of impoverished students wanting to drop out of high school. The students believe they have no other choice but to give up because they do not see themselves having a successful future. The high school dropout rates are astounding when you compare the number of dropouts of students living in poverty versus the students that are not living in poverty. Because many impoverished students drop out of high school, they do not receive a proper education. Without a proper education, it is almost impossible to find a steady, well-paying job. Without a well-paying job, these students turn into uneducated and unemployed adults. Because these adults are uneducated, once they have children, the children will be brought up the same way, believing they do not have to complete high school. Their children will grow up believing that poverty is inevitable and that the cycle of poverty will repeat and affect everyone.